Here we go. What is going on, Cover One crew? Welcome back to the show. Hope everybody's doing good. Continuing down this offseason path of Dynasty rankings, we're talking the top 30 tight ends on the board. And it is interesting because the landscape of tight ends has altered and changed and give us a little bit more room for optimism down the road in the future. Lots of youthful, young talent that are taking over the game at the tight end spot. You got to love it. So let's start off with the first one on the board. Sam Laporta, man, he's reporting in a big way. No kidding, man. He is the top-ranked fantasy football tight end this past season. Number one in his rookie year. Fabulous year. 86 catches, 889, and 10 touchdowns in this high-octane building Detroit Lions offense. 23 years of age, and he did come back from that injury this past game in the playoffs. Nothing seemed to be keeping this man out of the postseason, but he was the finish as the number one. He is my top tight end moving into dynasty formats for next season. He is the true, legit, real deal, and if the Lions continue to move down this path, there is nothing stopping this man. Only 58% on the boom rate. Not great because he did hit in a lot of the way they scheme up in Detroit is the reason why for that, but the way they do hit in Detroit, he does get a lot of target share, well over 100 targets this year, so his role is definitely not going anywhere. Number two, Trey McBride, Arizona Cardinals, 24 years of age. This man was a baller. I was a huge supporter of this man coming out of his draft class. Then finally, with Zach Ertz going down, they released him. He asked for his release, and now Trey McBride is the number one tight end attraction in Arizona with these Cardinals. As the Cards continue to build, I think Trey's role is going to absolutely continue. He showed that he's a great red zone threat. He's got the ability to be a heavy PPR upside tight end as well. 81 receptions, 825, and 5 touchdowns. It's not the 10 TDs Laporta gives you, but he does have a lot of skills. He is a big human being with lots of athletic ability, and I'm telling you, 41% on the boom rate does not necessarily suggest what this man truly is, but he is a very good quality tight end that we can all rely upon. Like I said, for tight ends, majority of the time when you are rolling into the end zone at least 6 times, you can flirt with a top 12 finish, and Trey McBride finishes as my number 2 ranked tight end at this point, even though he did finish as the number 9 in all of fantasy football. Number 3, Dalton Kincaid, Buffalo Bills. Okay, it wasn't necessarily the season that we had anticipated. We all thought it was going to be a Sam Laporta year for a Dalton Kincaid, but it is still a very good season. 73 for 673 and only 2 touchdowns. That's where his stock did cripple us. If he got into the 5-6 range, he would have finished into the top 10. He did finish as the 12th tight end in the rankings for half PPR leagues. The future is very bright for Dalton Kincaid playing with Josh Allen, and they're figuring it out how to utilize this man. How will they distribute targets, and will they be that much more explosive with Dalton in the future coming seasons? Abso-freaking-lutely, I do believe it. He's only scratching the surface. Yes, he did deal with some drops. That was the biggest question. Why is he dropping passes when his hands were so reliable statistically, analytically coming out of his draft class? But I still believe Dalton Kincaid has got a bright future with the Buffalo Bills, and he will be a top tight end for years to come. Number 4, Mark Andrews. I could lift him up to number 2. There is no question about that. Only 28 years of age. Tight ends do live a little bit longer when it comes to fantasy football, but I'm going to drop him down to number 4 at this point, simply due to age and the fact that we got a lot of youthful, nice tight ends coming up the docket, man. Yes, Andrews did deal with some injuries, so it did drop his total points. 45 receptions for almost 550 and 6 touchdowns. He is coming back for this playoff run now. But I mean, it's Mark Andrews with Lamar Jackson. He is not disappointed outside of missing contests. He still is one of the best tight ends in all of fantasy football, and he should continue once again. George Kittle, number 5. What a season he had with these 49ers, and I mean 30 years of age. I could lift him up as well, but I mean age always dictates terms a lot when it comes to dynasty fantasy football. He did play in 16 contests, so it was relatively good for him this year, where we are used to seeing him drop his way into the medical room. 56% on the boom rate for him, but he did cross the 1,000-yard mark, the only tight end on the list to cross the 1,000-yard mark this year, which is absolutely crazy, man. 65 for 10, 20, and 6 touchdowns. He did get you 170 points. He was very good. Finishes as the top 5 tight end in all of fantasy football this year. His PPR upside is what crippled him, but it is, TD upside is what always is going to carry him, and there is plenty of weapons in San Francisco, so George Kittle is definitely still sticking as my top 5 dynasty tight end. Kyle Pitts, number 6. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because a lot of people are going to say Kyle does nothing, but we got, positivity, potential rejuvenation in this Atlanta Falcons offense. New head coach is coming. Could it be Bill Belichick? He's getting a second interview. We'll see what this does happen. And I mean, if he is Bill Belichick, he does like his tight end. So I do foresee potentially the Falcons do get themselves another quarterback, someone who can distribute the ball finally to these talented players on this offensive side. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and they will add likely again in this draft and the offseason for free agency. Kyle Pitts is only 23 years of age, y'all. He's already figuring it out, man. Okay, he had a decent season, not great. 53 for 667 and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, it was not a great year. Boom-wise, 23.5. That's why he is not a fantasy darling right now. If he goes into the 50 percentile threshold of boom games, Kyle Pitts is right in here in the top 10. I got him at number 6 because, I mean, the talent is still there. Age is still super youthful, and the change over here in Atlanta is going to be absolutely fantastic. You got to believe I'm going one more year for Kyle Pitts, ranking him in the top 6, man. Number 7, TJ Hawkinson. He only drops, the caveat, he only drops on my list this offseason right now, simply due in part to the late knee injury that he did sustain. This is going to be a problem in his recovery. We're likely not going to have him for next season, so what is it going to be? A year lost. He is 26 right now, so we're going to get him at the latter stages of 2024, where he's going to be already 27 years old, and he'll likely come back at the age of 28. So if he does turn the recovery very well, we can absolutely lift him back up the board. Hawkinson is one of the better tight ends in this league. Healthy-wise, he will continue to be a top 3 fantasy player for me. He would have been ranked easily in my top 3. I would have dropped Dalton Kincaid. Probably right in between Kincaid and Mark Andrews would have been a TJ Hawkinson, but due to this injury, I have no choice but to drop him down. Great season, almost cracked 1,000 yards, 95 for 965 touchdowns, and 60% on the boom rate. Hawkinson was an absolute freak this year, and we'll see if Kirk Cousins does return as well. That would also uplift this offense. But they're going to be drafting a quarterback at some point in this NFL draft, likely. So we'll see how it does shake down at the quarterback spot. But because of the injury, Hawkinson is at number 7 for me. Dropping down my board big time is Travis Kelce, number 8. It's warranted for me, man. I was already telling y'all, but this past offseason, now's the time in Dynasty to trade a Travis Kelce to another team. Get that supreme value back. I traded him in a lot of leagues this offseason, got a boatload in return, and my team was no worse for wear. 34 years of age. We have already seen Travis discuss the potential aspect of retiring from football. We just saw his brother retire as well. So you got to believe, 1, 2 more years left, maybe 3. It's going to be very tough to trust him in Dynasty when it comes to when he's going to leave the game. He still did not have the greatest of Travis Kelce seasons that we're used to, but I mean, 93 receptions for almost 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns, still nothing to sneeze at, but we expect more from Kelce, man. When you're using a first-round pick on this man in redraft formats, because he acts like a wide receiver when he doesn't hit the bar, and he finished as the top 3 tight end this year, but 73% on the boom rate, you got to believe the regression is coming. He's dropping more passes than we have ever seen in his entire career. So for me, I'm definitely selling Travis Kelce, and he is dropping down my board because we don't know when the end is coming, but it is closer than it is at the beginning stages. Number 9, Evan Ingram finishes as number 2 tight end. He is 29 years of age. I could lift him up, but I mean, I can't drop him, or I can't lift him up ahead of guys like a TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts. Even though his season was very good, he is only 29 years of age, 52% on the boom rate. He caught a ton of passes this year. This is everything we thought Evan Ingram was going to be in this league with those New York Giants back in the day. 114 receptions, 963 and 4 touchdowns. His issue was getting into the end zone. He could have easily found his way to being the top tight end in all fantasy football, but he could not score touchdowns until week 13? So it was definitely tough sledding, getting that top-end point productivity, but he was hitting that threshold of boom games every single week for you when he was catching a lot of passes. Evan Ingram in this Jacksonville offense that is trying to continue to build and move forward. He is at my number 9. Number 10, David Njoku, 27 years of age. And I mean, with Joe Flacco, that's all it took. Joe Flacco to build out this guy to be the guy we wanted. How's he going to continue to look in this offense with Deshaun Watson? This has been the struggle. I mean, he's loaded with potential or with talent and ability. Back when he was drafted, we all said it was the talent, ability, and potential that could be sustainable for a David Njoku. He had a great season this year, especially when Joe Flacco did come 50% on the boom rate, 81 receptions, 882, and 6 touchdowns, all career highs, if I'm not mistaken. Check me on that. But I'm telling y'all, David Njoku right now is my number 10. He showcased the breakout season we were all looking for. Will it continue with the Deshaun Watson? That is my only fear, hence why I got him here at number 10. Number 11, Jake Ferguson. Dallas Cowboys, he did more than enough with Dak Prescott, 25 years of age. As they got rid of Dalton Schultz, they found an easy fill-in with a Jake Ferguson. He is a good quality tight end, utilized a lot in the pass game, utilized a lot in the red zone, 71 for 761 and 5 touchdowns, 47% on the boom rate. Jake Ferguson can absolutely be trusted in fantasy formats. Now, news saying that coach Mike McCarthy is going to be returning to the fold as a head coach of these Cowboys. This offense should be exactly the same as we saw this past year. Potential additions in the running back room, but Jake Ferguson's role is not going anywhere, especially with Dak Prescott, because he does love his tight ends. Number 12, Cole Kmet, Chicago Bears. 24 years of age, got his big bag contract this past offseason, and he repaid everybody. But the reason, the issue was with the Cole Kmet, he was booming in games heavy, and then he would disappear. 35% on the boom rate. It is not consistent for a Cole Kmet. While he does give you the top-end point productivity, the consistency is down, man. You get like 2 games out of him, then he disappears for 3. And it's a big problem for you when it comes to consistency rates. That's why you lose your fantasy matchups, because guys like this disappear when you need them the most. Cole Kmet, this is an interesting situation in Chicago. Will they continue with Justin Fields? Will they draft a Caleb Williams? Will they draft a Drake May? This is going to be all moving parts. Who's going to be the offensive coordinator? They're continuing with Eberflus as the head coach in the Chicago. So lots of moving parts. He can absolutely move up my board and down my board based on current team situation. Keep your eyes on that with Cole Kmet. Dallas Goedert, 29 years of age, Philadelphia Eagles. And these Eagles got their wings clipped, man. What can you say? They did not look good down the stretch, 1-5, and then losing in the playoffs. It is not a good look for these Eagles. No kidding. 28% on the boom rate for Goddard, because you got guys like A.J. Brown, excuse me, and Smitty. And then you got DeAndre Swift. So Swift took a lot of, touches and carries from the backfield, which did not go to Dallas Goedert. Goddard did fracture his forearm, which did lose him some games as well. Still a decent year, over 106 points. He did finish as a top 15 fantasy tight end, and I think that his role will continue to be had in Philadelphia. We'll see the transition and how they do work in Philly, but Dallas Goedert still got a good, 5 years left of quality football in this offense as the Eagles do move forward. Number 14, Pat Freiermuth, the Muth. It was a lost season for Pat Freiermuth. No kidding about it. The Pittsburgh offense could not get out of their own way. Kenny Pickett was not good. They had to do the revolving door of quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph doesn't even look in this man's direction, but the Muth is only 25 years of age. Fully healthy, he is an absolute dynamo in the red zone, and he will score you touchdowns. Stat line is terrible, and 16.7% on the boom rate is not good. Like I said, for regrettable, forgotten season for a Pat Freiermuth, but he still is my 14th ranked tight end, simply because the talent is off the chain, man. He can score touchdowns at will, and like I said, I believe before last year, he never had a red zone drop in his entire career, even going back to high school, if I'm not mistaken. So you gotta trust Pat Freiermuth's rebound season should come, potentially with a new head coach if Mike Tomlin is not there. I do like Pat Freiermuth still a lot, as he should be integrated more into that offense. Dalton Schultz, number 15, Houston Texans. He repaid the Texans in a very big way, coming over as a free agent. 121 points, 46% on the boom rate, almost had 700 yards, 60 catches, 5 touchdowns. C.J. Stroud is the real deal. The only question mark I have in this situation, are they going to re-sign a Dalton Schultz? Yes, they got cap room, so I do foresee it happening if they do want to do that. But they got a young man named Brevin Jordan, who I'm going to talk about later, but Dalton Schultz is that guy. He's a safety blanket. He's a touchdown upside guy. He's a PPR chain mover. He is a quality tight end, always has been since his Dallas Cowboy days. And if he does go on to another club, then we'll have to reevaluate. But at this point, I do have some, fear he may not return with C.J. Stroud. If he does return with Stroud, then his rank does go above a Pat Freiermuth for me, would jump up in probably number 12, right behind a Jake Ferguson, above a Cole Kmet. But right now, because the landscape of the offseason of how how his offseason is going to go definitely clouds that for me. Number 16 and 17, I'll do this right together. We got Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, Green Bay Packers. Right now, everyone knows Luke Musgrave is the more athletic, talented, pass-catching tight end that Green Bay has. And, kudos to the Green Bay Packers front office, scouting department for getting all these quality pieces for a Jordan Love, man. But Tucker Kraft, he did showcase for me a lot more of being the full-rounded tight end, where a Luke Musgrave would be the more pass-catching, happy tight end. So, Luke Musgrave did deal with more injuries, where Tucker Kraft was a lot more reliable. We see Kraft with 23% boom rate, and we got Luke Musgrave only at 9.1% boom rate. Even though their stat lines are very similar, we got a little bit more productivity out of a Tucker Kraft, and I think down the road, there could be a situation where Tucker Kraft is going to be the number one guy over a Luke Musgrave. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, because we're still trying to throw darts at the board at this young talent. They're both 23 years of age, both drafted in the same rookie class, so it is going to be a situation. Which tight end does Green Bay really covet and like the more? Who's going to give more offensive punch to this offense? So for me at this point, having them back-to-back, they're interchangeable. You can flip them as you want, but 16 and 17 for both these tight ends is absolutely warranted. Michael Mayer, number 18, Las Vegas Raiders. I liked him, man, coming out of Notre Dame. I thought he was one of the better quality tight ends. Did not really fully expect his season to go this way. They did not utilize him very well. He is extremely youthful, 22 years of age, lots of growing pains, had to learn how to block better, but his ability in the pass game and the offensive punch is absolutely been put on display. He did have one breakout game that we did witness, which was quality, man, 21% on the boom rate. It was simply due in part he wasn't targeted near enough. We couldn't trust him in fantasy this year, but as they do move forward, new head coach, new system, potential new quarterback, new changeover to the entire team, Michael Mayer is going to be a standard in this offense. Even if it is Devontae Adams, does leave and depart these Raiders this season, along with Josh Jacobs potentially departing as well, we could see a big, heavy target share go to a Michael Mayer as he gets his role increased. I'm a big fan of his, number 18 for me, and it is on the watch to say this could increase a very big way for a Michael Mayer. Number 19, Isaiah Likely. He is the epitome of great handcuff tight ends for a Mark Andrews. So long as Mark Andrews is the number one tight end in Baltimore, Isaiah Likely is going to find his way on the bench. But you could make an argument, do the Baltimore Ravens have the discussion to move on from Mark Andrews sooner rather than later with a guy like Isaiah Likely only at 23 years of age, and he did put up points for us when we required him. He was basically interchangeable stat-wise, trust-wise for a Lamar Jackson, even when Mark Andrews did go down. They are very good, Baltimore is, at drafting tight ends and developing them, so I gotta say Isaiah Likely is definitely one of these guys as well. Keep him on your dynasty teams and wait for Mark Andrews to depart, and we could have ourselves another quality number one tight end in Baltimore. Number 20, Darren Waller, New York Giants. 31 years of age, dealing with a plethora of injuries, quarterback issues, team did not look good. I think 20 is absolutely relevant for a Darren Waller. I'm out, man. I can't trust this man anymore. His hamstrings are made of bubble gum. They tear anytime he's on the field. Yes, when he does come on the field, he does play. 25% on the boom rate, not good. He does not boom when we require him, but it does also come down to who's throwing the football. So for me, Darren Waller, I'm kind of moving down, and I'm kind of moving out. 31 years of age. I'm going to these youthful tight ends at this point. Darren Waller still gives you enough point productivity to warrant a 20 spot, but I think I'm moving out from him at this point. Number 21, as we get on the latter stages here, Hunter Henry. New England Patriots, new head coach with a Mayo, and we'll see how they do operate. Are they going to go Zappe? Are they going to draft a quarterback? They do have the third overall pick, so they say they're going to draft the best player available. Hunter Henry still, okay, he did save his day quite a bit with those touchdown scores, 35% on the boom rate. He was not consistent whatsoever. I believe that, the first 2 weeks he was great, and then he disappeared to week 10, 11. He did not support us whatsoever. Hunter Henry's going to be one of these guys until they have a dedicated system of passing him the football in New England. I'm moving on as well, man. Gerald Everett, Los Angeles Chargers, okay, up and down season, filled with injury as well. Will he return to Los Angeles? New coaching staff, that is the key. His career kind of seems like one of those yo-yos that's going to be right now, up and down, and depending on where he does land in this free agency market, does he return to LA? Does he move to another club? We will have to reevaluate. He still's got enough skills to carry you from time to time, but he is turning into the matchup play tight end that we're looking for off the waiver wire. Kate Otten, number 23. While I do like the skill set of Cade Otton, he's only 24 years of age. He did give you, 4 touchdowns and 455 yards of receiving. He's just so game scripted into this Tampa Bay offense, especially with a Baker Mayfield, even going with a Tom Brady. I mean, it is what it is. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin. This Trey Palmer kid is starting to pick up steam as well. He is literally, and then you got Rachaad White. So, I mean, he's literally, the 4th, 5th option in this offense. He will get his games. It's usually 25%, 1 out of 4. And I'm saying right there, look, the boom rate is 17.6. So it is roughly around the quarter mark where he is going to get targeted heavily in the game plan. Cade Otton, we just can't trust. He's got talent. He's got ability. We just can't trust him for top-end point productivity. Okonkwo, we're talking Tennessee Titans. Rebuild is underway. He's likely going to be a fixture in this offense moving forward. 24 years of age. They just don't use the man. 5.9% on the boom rate, man. You can't trust that whatsoever, man. 86 points, but he did put up stats. Everyone's going to look at the stat line and say, he's good. He's quality. He's a good tight end. He's athletic. He's a freak in that department, but he's just not utilized in this offense, whether it would have been Ryan Tannehill or a Will Levis. We cannot trust him right now. Everybody thought it was going to be the breakout last year. I told y'all to pass up on Okonkwo because that offense was still run heavy, but potentially no Tannehill moving with Levis, no Derrick Henry moving with Tajay Spears. We could see a changeover in this offense, and maybe Okonkwo does take a lot more targets this year, but he is at 24 for me because I want to see you prove it before I start preaching up your good graces. Greg Dulcich, number 25, Denver Broncos. Caveat on Dulcich right now. I love the talent, love the ability. 23 years of age. He marks all the checks. For having the youthful dynasty tight end we're looking for. But what is going down in Denver? No more Russell Wilson. He's expected to be released. Are they rolling with Jarrett Stidham? Who's going to be the quarterback on this team? Dulcich dealt with an injury all season long. Very hard to trust for me, okay? He's one of these guys that he's a flyer tight end I keep on my taxi squad, and I'm hoping for the best that it does turn out. At this point, I can't trust it either. Too many injuries. The whole situation in Denver does not look good. When he's on the field, he could be a dynamo. No kidding. He lost his entire season due to injury. So for me, 25 is definitely warranted, but he is one of these players who could jump from 25 all the way to 15. There is no kidding about that. Juwan Johnson, 26, New Orleans Saints, 27 years of age. Another one that kind of fell into the Okonkwo sweepstakes of saying he's going to boom this year. You have to understand, man, just because Derek Carr utilized Darren Waller in Las Vegas, I mean, he's got other weapons here in New Orleans. Are they going to continue down the Derek Carr bandwagon as well? They're keeping the head coach Allen, so I mean, it is going to be the very similar offensive punch again in 2024. You got to believe unless something drastically changes. Juwan is talented, but he's used far too sparingly for us to trust. Still keep him on your taxi squad if you can have room. If not, I mean, I don't mind keeping him on the waiver wire at this point. He doesn't give you near enough to warrant a roster spot if you got other weapons. No kidding. Jonnu Smith, Atlanta Falcons, 27 rank. He gave you games. He was the epitome also of the matchup type tight end. I mean, he was taking away targets from a Kyle Pitts, which was interesting. So give Jonnu Smith's numbers to a Kyle Pitts, even at 75% clip. And we're talking about Kyle Pitts being a top 5 fantasy tight end, where Jonnu did have 50 for 582 and 3 touchdowns. He still's got life in Atlanta. We'll see if it is a Bill Belichick and what they do, but Jonnu Smith is definitely falling down my board due to team dynamic, target share, and then potentially Kyle Pitts taking the elevated role in this offense. Taysom Hill at number 28, the full Swiss Army knife. He throws, he runs, he catches. He's 33 years of age at this point. I mean, if you have him on your roster, you keep him because you can fill him in at your tight end spot, and he can throw you touchdown passes, hence why he's here still at number 28. He's not one that I'm rushing to, trade for or anything, but if you have him, you definitely keep him. Number 29, Noah Fant. He's been nothing with these Seattle Seahawks, and that's not necessarily his fault. He is a good quality tight end. When he does show up and he gets target share, he does produce, but there is too many weapons and too many mouths to feed with Kenny Walker, Zach Charbonnet, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. How are you going to get this man the football? It's very tough, very sparring, 5.9% on the boom rate. He just is not fantasy viable at this point. If you got him, I understand holding him, but I mean, at this point for me, Noah Fant can almost be dropped. Where Brevin Jordan finishes off my top 30 rank for tight ends. And this is a big caveat. If Dalton Schultz is not re-signed, I think that they could move with a Brevin Jordan. Injuries have been the problem for this man as well. But like we saw in that playoff game, he has got wheels for days, athletic ability and skill for days. Brevin Jordan could be one of these guys. If he's starting to figure out his game just a little bit more trust from a CJ Stroud, you will have a dynamo, kind of like a David Njoku type tight end with bigger wheels in Houston with a Brevin Jordan. If he is on your waiver wire, pick him up and stash him on your taxi squad or trade him for pennies on the dollar right now, because this potential could be huge in this Houston Texans offense for a Brevin Jordan. That's why I got him here at rank 30. But there you have it. That is my top 30 tight ends. As we're talking Dynasty Fantasy Football, I got wide receivers coming to conclude this series here on rankings, because Dynasty drafts are going to be starting. The startup drafts or your rookie drafts will be coming closer to the NFL draft. Like I was saying before, there is lots of moving parts, and this will be a fluid event for rankings, no kidding. But nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts, and we'll see you next time. I am out.